Hello guys, welcome to my first ever YouTube video on my channel. So in this opportunity, I'm going to teach you guys about competitive programming. I'll give you guys the basic overview of it, and then I will try to explain the very basics of C++ to make sure that you can start start your journey to competitive programming immediately. So before I teach you guys, I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Daniel. I have a Codeforces rating of 1624, which is my max rating currently, and I'm a USACO Silver. I don't really do USACO because I'm not American, so I just do it for fun. And for CodeChef, I have 3 star in that platform, and this is my LinkedIn and my GitHub. So feel free to connect, feel free to star my repos if you want. I'll be very happy for it. Okay, so we move on. So before we do competitive programming, we should know what it is. So what is competitive programming? Competitive programming can be treated as a sport. So you have a set of problems and then you solve it within a time that is set by the contest, and then it's all about data structures and algorithms problem. So it's very similar to lead code. If you guys know, if you guys have tried lead code before, then I believe that competitive programming is similar, but they are not the same, since competitive programming sometimes has some topics that is not covered in lead code. So here are some facts that I found interesting about competitive programming. So competitive programmers usually use C++ to solve problems because they're fast, and for me they are quite simple, at least for me, but most people find it hard. But I don't know. I like C++ more than Python. And the oldest contest is ICPC, which is for university students, and for high school students they can join IOI or maybe their country's national olympiad. And for the sites that can be used for practice, there are Codeforces, CodeChef, and AdCoder. These three are the big ones. Usually I usually I also use like Dmosh and TLX, which is my country's online judge. But I'm just gonna mention these three just for the sake of simplicity. Along the course, I believe that you guys will find more sites later. Okay, so before we also do competitive programming, we need to know what happens if we submit our code and then there's some verdict that we do not know. So these are the verdicts that I know. At least some of them are very common. For something like, I don't know, I saw one at my country's judge. There's an okay verdict, then something else, but I believe that is not quite relevant to others, so I'm just going to mention these. So first verdict is wrong answer. So basically the user's output does not match the correct output, which is obvious, so it's wrong. And compilation error, so the code is unable to be compiled, so basically it has some syntax error or something. And TLE, so the user's code run longer than the intended constraint. So basically when you have like the time limit of 1 second and then your code runs 1.5 seconds, and of course you'll get TLE. And for runtime error, it's quite specific, I believe. So it's basically you just get a runtime error, that's it. Like maybe you access something incorrectly, and yeah, other stuff. And memory limit exceeded is similar to time limit, but in here it's about memory, not time. And for accepted is, of course, your code is correct and you'll get points. Let's go. So before we do competitive programming again, we need to learn the language behind it. So I will teach you guys about C++, and I'm not going to tell you how to set up C++ because I think it's going to be a long tutorial, and I believe that it's about preferences. Let's say that if I give you tutorial about like how to set up C++ in VS Code, some of you might use, let's say, Sublime Text, and then something different will happen. But I usually use VS Code for this. You guys can use anything to code in C++ as long as it runs. Okay, so this is going to be your C++ program. Feel free to copy this. So we have the include bits stdc++.h, which is the header, and then we have using namespace std in main cout hello world return 0. So basically I'm going to explain some parts of it, but you don't need to know for now. Just copy the template first and then we can move on. So the include thing is the header, include bits is the header, and using namespace std is used to shorten stuff like the cout, so the output, which will be talked later. So it should be std cout, but since we have using namespace std already, we don't need to use the std again, so we just write cout. And for int main is the main function, so your code starts there, and without that your code cannot run. And for the cout is to print something, cout hello world prints hello world, and return 0 is the thing that ends the program. So yeah, so it's the terminator. Okay, so now we'll be discussing about input and output to solve your first ever CP problem, or in this case C++, because I don't think that only printing is CP. I don't think it's competitive programming. It's just a C++, but oh well, it's okay. Okay, so for input and output, you must know that input is cin and output is cout. So I'm going to talk about cin later because usually, right? No, not usually. I mean, every time you want to input some stuff, you need to know what stuff you're going to input. So in this case, you can see that cin x is a variable, which is like, I don't know, integer type or string type. We do not know. So I'm going to talk about it later, probably when we are discussing about variable types like arrays, integers, string, characters, and so on later. So in this video we're going to focus more about output and solve one problem. So output is basically just cout, and then you see the arrow marks going to the left. So yeah, notice the difference there, right? Cin is going to the right and cout going to the left. And yeah, that's basically it for input and output. So I have this exercise from my Indonesian online judge. Feel free to try. So the problem translation is just simply to change the hello TLX to hello dunia. So you can change the code, but I suggest that to code from scratch, because if you want to truly learn a language, you just don't simply copy paste stuff and then probably make some modifications later. You need to actually code it from scratch so that you get the feeling of it. So yeah, that's how I coded C++ when I was a beginner. Okay, I think that's all for today's video. Hope you enjoy it. And this is my first ever video, so I think there's going to be a lot of, I don't know, mistakes that might happen, or I don't know, some stuff that is not good enough. So feel free to give me suggestion. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that we can do competitive programming together in the future. Thank you.